One glorious and magnificent day, Holly decided to take a stroll down Diagon Alley. She was just minding her own business and being her usual quiet and innocent self, when suddenly a dashing brown horse came galloping past. She noticed that Ross was on his back. "This is easy," he yelled as he rode past her. As she opened her mouth to argue back about the complexity of horse riding, typical, the horse flicked a pile of mud in her face. Holly was so upset that her bay had made fun of her that she peed.
So she went to the toilet to calm down and came across a beautiful, pretty girl who was a princess from a magical fairyland. The princess's name is Trisha. And since it is Holly's birthday, the princess, who also turns out to be a fairy, agreed to grant her one wish, and only one wish, and should be made from her heart. So she wished for...
Well, actually, first she asked if she would have to pay for the wish, because she's too tight and stingy for that. Anyway, once she was reassured it was free, she wished to be with Ross forever and ever. The fairy waved her wand, which strangely looked like a dildo, and with a bang and a flash, her free wish was granted. But Holly felt weird, as if something was on her back, and then she heard a shout from behind her that sounded like her beloved Ross. Suddenly, Holly realised what had happened. Her and Ross had been merged into one person.
Once Holly suddenly realised this, the first thing that came to her head was, now that she had two brains, perhaps she could beat Charlotte Burrell. The idea of beating Charlotte Burrell gave Holly an unsettling feeling in her stomach. A brown lumpy liquid started to pour out of Ross's mouth. This liquid was shit. Holly had shit herself, and had unfortunately come out of poor beloved Ross's mouth. The brown shitty liquid then
made its way dripping to the floor. As Holly walked out, pumped up, ready to beat Charlotte Burrell and Paul, the traces of these circular-shaped brown liquid followed Holly behind her. With Charlotte following her unnoticed, listening to her beautiful voice singing "When Will My Life Begin" as her victorious song, Charlotte grabbed her blonde pigtails with a pink bow in her hair, of course, and kicked her in the butt. Louis Liversedge then cruising down the corridor.
And Louis, being Louis, began furiously arguing with Holly about animal rights. Holly got so angry that she flung herself at Louis so hard that everybody became unattached to Ross. Hooray! I'm now a strong, independent black woman.
Her beloved Ross was vehemently launched into Louis Liversedge, engulfing him and successfully killing him as his cranium violently penetrated his own rectal sphincter. But where she expected to see her rejuvenated babe beside the cadaverous body of the former equine cynic, a mere green puddle was all that lay. Soon after, a muculent milquetoast, similar in shape to that of a horse, began to rise from the churning puddle. Her first notion was that this was the physical manifestation of a green horse, which, a common clowning zinger among horse enthusiasts, is recognized to be a horse with little training and experience. What is this horseplay? Holly thought to herself, when the horse shape began to luxuriate, filling the expanses of the broad and general casing air. A mist began to slither around the body that grew. Then a booming voice from above her cried, "Fiona!" A gasp of alarm was all that escaped Holly's full black lips. Before her stood not the regenerated form of her treasured Ross. Before her stood Shrek. She spoke to Shrek. "Oh Shrek, I am black and you are green. I am Fiona." Fuck. Can you edit it? Yeah. Okay. "Oh Shrek, I am black and you are green. I am Fiona and you are Shrek. You are Ross and I am Holly. Shrek me Ross. Shrek me."
Alicia, I can't track you here. Not now. Let's run away together. Let's explore, do crazy shit. You can be my Louise to my boob. You can be the snow to my white. Come with me. Forget about horses, about beating Charlotte Burrell. Because baby, you and me can make sweet, sweet love. No competition. None of that Louis Liversedge. Just you and me. Let's gallop away into Foreverland. Let it go. Baby, let it go. Holly was reluctant to agree. Did she really want this? Was Ross the right man for her? Would she regret this decision for the rest of her life? "I'll buy you a Starbucks," Ross offered. "Deal," Holly replied, without hesitation. A classic bribe. The duo jumped onto the horse and galloped away. Once they arrived at Ross's castle, there stood the hot Starbucks guy, called Here But Not Here Lynch. His olive skin and green eyes shimmered in the moonlight. In his muscular hand, He held a venti vanilla spice latte with an extra shot and whipped cream on top. Mmm. Got milk? He asked in a seductive and sexual manner. His voice was full of lust and passion. He wanted Holly Hague.
She beheaded Ross and pounded the vanilla spice latte at the same time. His large ogre head spun to the ground amid streams of coffee and foam. As it fell, it slowly shrunk and became human again, Ross's face staring at her with a mixture of hurt and confusion on his charming face. A strange sense of uncharacteristic guilt hit Holly then. She looked at the Starbucks man and realized that with all of his good looks, he was obviously vastly inferior to Ross, the one and only. Shrek's body lay on the ground, green limbs twitching horrifically. It didn't shrink back to the feeble stick figure she had so adored. What would Holly do now? Did she want a world with no Ross? Was it worth living in a land without his awkward silence? Probably not. Holly stalked away from the gore-splattered Starbucks man, who was panicking about the blood in his hair. What a bitch. Before she knew it, Holly was deep in the woods, tired feet dragging behind as the moon rose. The sun was close to breaking when she stopped. A large horse was picking its way through the trees towards her. Holly recognized it as the same one Ross had been riding. Her frail heart couldn't handle any more, and she broke down, but not before noticing a large sack tied to the horse's saddle. Inside, to Holly's amazement, disgust, and joy, was the head of her beloved, alive and figuratively kicking. It spoke in a deep voice, layered with the knowledge of ages. It made a promise that one day, when Holly had repented her mistake, the body of Ross would grow again. It took many years for the promise to come true. Holly was an old woman living in a small cottage on the same spot where the horse had come to her. She was just waking when a crash roused her. Ross was there, his body repaired, perfect in every way.
And then they all lived happily ever after. Happy birthday, Holly!